What's up? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Pete Prisco Jones' show. Happy New Year, Pete. How are you doing?
You're a violator. You're a violator.
Yeah, Happy New Year. That was a good one.
Happy New Year to everyone.
That just went right over my head.
You did.
How was the Arizona State game, by the way, outside the outcome?
It was fantastic. I had great seats. I had a great experience with my wife, and it was torturous.
Yeah.
Because, look, if they won, which they should have, they weren't going to beat Ohio State anyways. And it was all gravy. But when you get to that moment and it's 4th and 13 and you have that happen to you, I mean, why blitz them in that scenario?
Yeah. I texted you. I was like, this is ridiculous. These guys are wide open right now.
Well, I mean, they called timeout, Texas. ASU showed the blitz. They called timeout and ran it again.
Same one.
It made no sense to me.
The thing that played to me, and obviously we're going back a ways here, the non-targeting call
Terrible.
was unbelievable.
That's definition of.
It was like the guy put the crown of his helmet into his face mask.
And the Texas fans, when you say that, the Texas fans go, what about the other one on Bond earlier? And that one was debatable at all.
Yeah.
But, okay, in that scenario, if it's targeting, it's first down at the 40 with about a minute left. They still would have needed, the way ASU's kickers are, they would have needed another 20 yards anyways, but they could have got it. They would have probably got it and had a chance for the game-winning field goal.
I think more people with teams that had like an astral ascent in terms of rankings, like Arizona State, they weren't exactly the elite powerhouse.
They would have picked last in the conference.
So for them to have the jump that they did, I wish more fans had your appreciation for it. Like you are really proud of this team and you like the way that they played the game. And, you know, you're on there. I see you talking to people on Twitter all the time. I love your Twitter. If you don't follow Prisco, do it. But I wish more fans had an appreciation and respect for their team like Pete does. And he's not just down the dumps after a loss like that. Like you guys, we talked about it. Like Texas on paper was the dominant team. That was a group that could manhandle you up front on both sides of the ball. And Arizona State did it all day. They were great. And you got to be proud of those guys.
I'm really proud. And I think Kenny Dillingham has done a great job.
He's awesome.
I mean, they have 15 to 20 starters, but 22 starters back next year and have done well in the portal. Here's the thing. I love college football. I always have, and I really love Arizona State. I watch probably more college football than even the college football analysts because I sit there all day Saturday and watch it. It's all I do. And I'm concerned about college football.
I am too.
Because it's not good when the same teams are in there.
Yeah.
And we have Ohio State as a power right now. And people say, well, no, like Brady Quinn, I was on his show this morning. He's like, well, Notre Dame and Penn State haven't been there. You know, well, they're still blue blood programs. And blue blood programs are what runs the whole thing. And you know what people say, they'll push back. Well, look at the Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs have to build it and sustain it every single year. You don't have in college football, if you have the most money in the NIL now, you're going to have the best players.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just college football fans, they liked it because the product differentiation of it was my school. It's the same players for 4 years. You get to see them play from freshman year to junior year to senior year. You get to see that roster develop, and there's like continuity. There wasn't much turnover. There usually isn't much turnover in the way like the NFL has a big amount of turnover. Now it's like it's a new team every year. A guy will transfer from Alabama to Georgia, and no one bats an eye over the fact that he just went from like the same program, you know, essentially. So I think you're just going to lose a lot of people who were fans of the differentiation of the different aspect of the love of the game aspect that was present at college, like senior days, things of that nature that like matter at that level. And now there's going to be fans of the NFL. I mean, like if you love football, the product's better in the NFL. It's not as good a product on the collegiate football field. So I think they are going to start losing people.
Because that's what made it so special. Right?
Yes.
I mean, I watch the NFL because I want to see the best of the best play every week. And a lot of people watch college football. I watch pro football to watch the best of the best every week. A lot of people have watched college football for the exact reasons you're talking about. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Virginia Cavaliers because that's where my brother played. And I was in middle school and junior high, and I got to see these guys come in with him as freshmen, and I cheered for him for 4 years. You know, you take a look at the recruiting boards, who's committed, who's not committed. That stuff seems like it's out of the window. It's meaningless now. Like the microcosm of the whole thing is that guy, Bear Alexander. He's at Penn State. He's got a USC tattoo. He played at, Hawaii and Clemson.
He's got a Georgia tattoo on a USC profile picture, and it's a picture of him on his Instagram flexing.
I can't keep up with this shit anymore.
No, it's
okay?
crazy.
So you're going to lose those purist college fans, and they're going to just latch onto a pro football team and treat it with the same fervor that they did with college football prior to these changes.
Yeah, it just look, and then we know where it's going. They want the SEC and the Big Ten to have their own super league, and the rest of everybody else can go play, like they do the level in soccer. There's the Super League, and then there's the
Developmental league.
Yeah, that's what it's going to end up being.
But I mean, kind of, they call it the Power Four. It's not really the Power Four. It's two to the rest, as it stands right now.
They need to split it NFC, AFC like the NFL. Two conferences. Let them play a tournament style.
Well, here's the other thing. Get rid of the damn bowls. Look, I'm sorry. The game should be on campus. The game should be on campus.
Yeah.
And
so much better.
I mean, I think that's the way it should be. You win, you earn your right to have a game at the campus like they do in the NFL. You advance to the next round at the next best team. That's where you go.
Yes, the other side of things is, as a guy who doesn't have a favorite team outside of the Ducks, I live in Boca Raton. I got the upside down Boca hat. Shout out to my guy who made these Boca hats. But I went to the Boca Raton Bowl, and it was the Western Kentucky University Hilltoppers versus the James Madison Dukes. And I grew up an hour away from James Madison, so I was like, I know their colors at least. I'm going to go bring my family to this game. So I think these destination bowls for people who don't live in college towns are cool if they're in good spots, warm weather. If you want to go to San Diego, you want to go to Hawaii. People in Hawaii love to see football.
No, those are fine because look, those are made for TV things, and
but I think they do a good job there.
Yeah, they're fun for the community.
You're not going to pack the stadium,
but
every family in the town will go out.
The playoffs should be on the campus. It should be on the campuses.
So you're talking about the big ones, Fiesta, Orange.
But the problem
Sugar.
is they have a deal with the Rose Bowl has to play New Year's Day no matter what.
Rose Bowl. If you touch the Rose Bowl, I'm going to riot. I'm going to freak out.
Look, I've been to the Rose Bowl. I went and sat way back in the day when Arizona State beat Jim Harbaugh as a quarterback. I sat on the 50-yard line at the Rose Bowl among the Michigan fans.
Granddaddy of them all.
But right in the middle of the Michigan fans. And it was
I'm sure you got along great with those guys.
Oh, especially when I sang Shem Beckler's 1-7 in the Rose Bowl to hail to the victors. It was perfect. Shem Beckler's 1-7. Shem Beckler's 1-7. Shem Beckler's 1-7 in the Rose Bowl.
You made a lot of friends at the Rose Bowl.
Some old lady about 75 years old tried pushing me down the steps.
You get that California sunshine peeking through the trees, at you. You get your helmet's like dimly lit by that setting.
It's a great place to watch a game, but it shouldn't be making decisions based on the Rose Bowl.
We should Pete Prisco power rank bowl venues. That's what we should do.
Let me see which. I've been to the Orange Bowl. I've been to the Rose Bowl.
I've been to the Orange Bowl, but I'm going Thursday.
I was in the Fiesta Bowl.
I've been to the Orange Bowl. I've been to the Orange Bowl when it was in the Orange Bowl, not when it's been in the new stadium. I've never been to the Sugar Bowl, and I've never been to. I've been to the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah,
but again, put them all on campus. Don't play them when the students aren't there either. That's part of the problem.
That's dumb.
Right? The students are back now.
Yeah.
But like
the Notre Dame atmosphere was sweet, though, I will say.
What?
The atmosphere at Notre Dame was still like.
Well, you had Indiana right down the road, too. Yeah. That helped. What if it was.
That was at the Irish Stadium?
That was at, Notre Dame
Stadium. Okay. If Notre Dame students aren't there and Notre Dame's playing and it's not Indiana, is the stadium full?
I think it would have been. Yeah, for Notre Dame, it would have been.
Because Notre Dame has fans everywhere.
Ohio State, though, I was looking at ticket prices. We were tracking it because my in-laws are massive Ohio State family. Get-in price by kickoff was like $50
at Tennessee,
because the student section was students weren't there, and so they were selling their tickets that they got, and it was like $50 get in for the Tennessee. Ohio State, Tennessee, $50 get in.
You know what the get in was at the Arizona State Texas game? $16.
Damn, yeah. That's
the rest of them. I looked at the rest of them. You're right.
Take a time machine.
The rest of them were like not much more than that. It was crazy. I think the highest one was the Rose Bowl, and it was like 100 and something. But
is Scadaboo running back one?
Scadaboo's awesome. He's gonna be top 100 pick though. Scadaboo's.
He's gonna end up on the Chiefs.
I think he's a fourth rounder.
I bet he goes third.
Late third, maybe. Yeah.
Levitt, though, he is very talented. The quarterback,
redshirt freshman.
Guy reminds me of fly.
Bo Nix.
Yeah, he's very physically talented. Excited to see how he develops because he was already. I mean, he runs a lot. He's already like.
Well, he had to
scrambles a lot.
He had to in that game.
Yeah.
By the way, and I know the draft boards don't have him this high, but the Broughton kid from Texas is a big time defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Luther Broughton, is that his name?
They have a great D line.
That's a great name.
Him and Alfred Collins.
I think it's Luther Broughton. I think that's his name. Number 45.
If that's his name, he's an elite player. I can just tell you by his name.
Is it Luther Broughton? I'm not.
You're thinking of Luther Broughton was the former tight end for the Eagles.
I remember him.
Knew that
because
guy was
I
a
think,
player.
but number 45 on Texas, because he was a monster. And I kept pointing him out to
Vernon Broughton.
Vernon Broughton.
Ooh, makes me think of
How big is he? What do they list him at?
Vernon Broughton's listed at 6'4", 305 pounds.
He's bigger than that, because he weighs more than that now. And he was killing dudes.
Okay.
He was the best. When I
I'll have to
watched it, he was the best one on the field, I thought.
All right, let's get to Black Monday. We're going to do Black Monday today. Then we're going to do our Goldilocks power rankings. And we're actually just going to go for who Pete got wrong the most is how we're going to do it.
Well, because I got plenty of them wrong. And
you had actually a lot very close. And then we're going to do our debate segment to cap it off. So let's start with Black Monday, though. And I'm so glad you're on for this.
because you're the guy to talk to, right?
Because the Jacksonville Jaguars, they fired Doug Peterson, keep Trent Baalke. But then did you see the clip of Shad Khan and Trent Baalke where Shad Khan's asked if one of the head coaching candidates that you like wants changes made to the front office, would you be open to that? And with Trent Baalke on the Zoom, he says, yes, we would. So if someone wants the job, but wants a different GM, Trent Baalke still could be fired. What the heck's going on here, Jackson?
All right. And before that all came out, I had reached out to somebody in the organization, and what I was told was the coach will now have the major juice in the building. And they have said that in the past, but now I think it's to the point where that coach comes in, it's his power. And it should be. And in that scenario, if it's his power, then he should be able to make the decision on who he wants as the general manager. And I think that's why guys that they say, oh, I might not interview for that job, go interview for it.
Yeah.
And exhibit A is Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Johnson supposedly wants that job. That was the one he was eyeing all along. He's from North Carolina. He's, it's a small town, small town feel to it. Jacksonville has that same feel. Jacksonville has there's no state income tax. They have an owner that doesn't meddle. He kept that guy there for how long? Trent Baalke's been there for how long?
Yeah.
So you have a quarterback who you can make Jared Goff, same type of guy. You can do that with him. And so I think Ben Johnson's drawn to that. Well, go interview there and go in there and tell him, look, I have other options as well, but this is what I want here. Because he's supposedly the guy that he's linked to is the guy in DC that was with the Lions for many years. Was it Ryan Newmark? His name is. And I did some checking around on him. That guy worked with Bobby Beathard back. That's where you got to start. Bobby Beathard's one of the legendary football scouts in this history of this league. He's come up through the ranks. So go in there and say, look, I don't want him. I want him. If you want me, that's the conditions. And I think that's the way you get a guy like that.
Don't settle.
No.
Go in there and be like, this is the plan. If you don't want this, then I'm out.
Correct. And here's the other thing about Baalke. Baalke can go find people to interview. I don't think Shad Khan's good at that. He needs somebody. So I think he's using him as part of the process. Where the reality should be, he should get rid of him and get Tony Baselli to help him with the process.
Yes.
Rick Spielman.
Yeah.
Third team.
Every football team should have a great offensive lineman be a big part of the construction of the roster. I really feel that way.
Well, I mean,
and Tony Baselli, who's better than Tony Baselli?
I mean,
he's the Jaguar.
He's him. He's that guy. And there's been pushback against him in the past, but I think now would be the right time. And I do that show with Baselli on Mondays and in Jacksonville. And last night I was killing Baalke on the show. It's on their airways, but that's part of my deal. I can say whatever the hell, and I was killing him. And Tony was pushing back a little bit on me. And I told him, I said, wait a second here. All of a sudden, who's in that body? What do they do? They threaten to take down you out of the Ring of Honor if you didn't.
He buttoned up his shirt a little bit.
So I'm giving him crap up. But again, Baalke should have been out. He's not out. And it's just, I think, part of the mechanism of trying to find the right guy.
The underrated thing about Baalke's disastrousness as GM is not only are they not good right now, they're not in a good cap spot either. It's not like they're not good and have a bunch of money to play with. They have some like
$40 million, but they can get rid of some of that. Like there's money to get rid of.
But that's the thing is like they need to get rid of something. They have guys who have like big inflated numbers on that roster.
But I'll give you
they have a great tackle duo right now. I think Walker Little and Anton Harrison, with the trajectory Anton Harrison's gone, and with trajectory Walker Little played awesome at the end of the season.
That's the Stanford guy.
Yeah, he played after he got his contract extension. He played really well for three games before he got hurt again.
So you have you have
good tackles,
starting tackles that should be there for the next 5 years.
Correct.
Realistically, and a franchise quarterback. That is
And a
like
real
the
winner.
hardest,
And
the
a
hardest thing to
star
find
wide
in the
receiver,
NFL.
the
Real
number
winner
one
on the
star wide
outside.
receiver.
And a true stud number one wide receiver. That's like, if you're an OC and can't make magic with that.
But you like if you look at him and what he's done, if he actually hires the coach, it's the third coach. Guys don't get 3 coaches.
No.
He also now will be picking in the top 5 for the third time in 5 years, and 2 of those were number 1 overall. That you shouldn't be in this predicament. Then he gave him a boatload of money to spend on free agency last year. This is what he did. Gabe Davis,
Eric Armstead,
who now came out yesterday and
He
said
wants to play D tackle again.
but supposedly he said he wanted to play end in the first place.
Yeah,
And
experiment.
Okay, didn't do much. Then Ronald Darby, who got benched for a journeyman in Monteric Brown, Darnell Savage, who he brought in to play nickel, which was terrible to begin with, and he ended up playing safety. So he blew it. And then, you can go back and say, you could really go back and evaluate the year they picked Trayvon Walker. He should have taken Hutchinson. We know that now. Trayvon Walker's a good football player.
I knew it then, but yeah.
Trayvon Walker's a good I do too. Trayvon Walker's a good football player.
Yeah.
He's just not that sudden dynamic edge rusher. So then he comes back and he trades back in to get Devin Lloyd, who can play the run, has no earthly idea what the hell he's doing against the pass. Then he had already signed a linebacker in free agency, Aluakon. Then he drafts Muma.
Top of the third round.
Right.
664.
How many linebackers he comes back this year and he drafts last year he drafts Ventrell Miller, who ends up playing this year. I mean, it's just
he's addicted to linebackers.
He just compounds his problems, and he doesn't get out from underneath them. And luckily, look. If they loved Brian Thomas so much last year, they wouldn't have traded down 3 times. They would have just took him.
Yeah,
they got lucky.
So wild.
So
wild.
Ben Johnson, come on down.
That's who it should be.
Come on down.
Patriots, though, they fire Gerard Mayo. Is this Mike Vrabel's job? Do we think he's going to be? Do we think it's justified?
By the way, don't be surprised if Mike Vrabel isn't in play in Jacksonville. There's already supposedly talk of the backroom mechanisms working there because those two know each other, Balky, and he would save his own behind if that were the case. So,
and Balky would bend the knee to Vrabel.
Of course, until they start eating each other alive.
Then
you know how that will
bad
go.
mouth behind closed doors.
You know how that goes. That's a disaster. But Mayo, I think, was undone by everything. The whole thing, the coaching, the way he handled it, calling your team publicly soft early in the season. You can't do that. And look, as much as you want to call him soft in a meeting room, that's one thing, but not publicly. And then there were a couple other situations where he didn't handle him.
Ramondre Stevenson isn't going to play. He fumbles too much. Oh, Ramondre Stevenson starts. Or this quarter, Jacoby Brissett, the way that he characterized his training camp play or his preseason play, going back and forth, right? That's how it was with the Jacoby Brissett thing. I forget. It's been 20 weeks
Drake's
now.
been better, and then we're starting Jacoby.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part where he threw the offensive coordinator under the bus publicly.
Yep. I particularly remember the one that stuck out to me as a player was when they were called soft. And we talked about it in here. I had an issue with it then. I still have an issue with it now. Look, as a rookie head coach in the NFL, not a lot of people expect you to have success. Okay. You usually are going to get a second year. We talked about this yesterday on the pod. There's things that are out of your control, like the roster, like, the talent level. And then there's things that are in your control, like the way that you handle the media, the way that you speak to your team through the media, the way you address your team in team meetings. I have serious doubts about the messaging inside those buildings behind closed doors, because with open doors, with an open mic, I had problems with the things that I heard. So for Gerard Mayo, I fully anticipate him being a coach again. Maybe not next year. He'll probably be a coordinator or a position coach somewhere, but he'll take this experience and run with it. But Robert Kraft, with all the success they experienced in New England, he doesn't have a lot of patience for that.
Well, not only that, if you let it fester, it becomes worse. And so why not stop it before it gets worse? And a lot of times teams go, oh, we'll bring him back for another year, see if he fixes it. And then usually it gets worse. So if you don't think it's going to be, a problem, it's been a problem, then get rid of it. And so I think being Vrabel out there and seeing the Jets wanting to talk to Vrabel, I think that kind of influenced the decision a little bit.
Well, Vrabel, I hope he went into the Jets meeting and cornered Woody Johnson, dropped an Xbox off at the front door, and he was like, hey, Brick, you can play this. His son, you can play this Xbox. I'm going to go talk to your dad about the Jets. Corners him and is just like, if I'm here, you stay in your office. I'm going to handle the football stuff. He's like, I've seen it happen with Bill Belichick before. it needs to happen again to get you guys out of the mud as an organization.
I agree. They need to change the culture in that place.
Yeah.
In the worst way. And they need to have the owner quit being so much of an influence.
I forget who it was yesterday. Somebody from the Bears was asked about Mike Vrabel potentially interviewing or getting hired by the Bears. And gosh, I forget the guy's name, but he looked at the camera and they were like, what happens if Vrabel becomes a coach? And he says, a lot of shit's going to change around here. I think he'd been on the roster in Tennessee, maybe with Mike Vrabel. Yeah. And it was clear to me, like what you're saying, the culture has to change. Well, a guy like Vrabel will rip the roots right up out of the ground.
Kevin Byard? Then?
It wasn't Kevin Byard.
I don't know.
It was a linebacker.
All right. Some DC and OC firings. Lou Anarumo out as DC for the Bengals. Seahawks fire Ryan Grubb after one season. Gus Bradley out as DC for the Colts. Any of these stand out in any way, shape, or form?
Gus kind of saw it coming.
Yeah,
I mean, he knew. Look, Gus has been running the same scheme for decades. It's kind of they don't change. I love Gus. He's a great guy, but you got to change with the times a little bit, and they didn't. And by the way, the general manager in Indianapolis is back, and should he be? No.
That man. I mean, he's mastered the art of doing just enough to keep his job every single year, it seems like.
Well, he's also really good with the local media and the media and stuff, so he gets a pass that way.
But he just like skates by where it's like they never go so bad that they fire him, but they never do well enough that they don't fire him.
Since he's been there, every other team in the division has won it at least twice, and he hasn't won it.
That's since Grigson left?
Yeah.
Wow. And now people are yearning for the Grigson days.
No one's yearning for the Grigson days.
All I heard about was how bad Grigson was.
Grigson wasn't that bad.
That's what I'm saying.
Whoa, Grigson was bad.
He had some bad drafts, but Grigson was great.
It was Andrew Luck was great.
He was really good.
Yeah, but that gave
Ballard hasn't had great drafts.
I know. I'm not defending Ballard in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying Ryan Grigson was not.
Anarumo, look. Come on, you watch that defense all year. Yeah,
it's not the same defense he's had success with. I mean, sometimes it's indicative of talent, sometimes it's indicative of scheme. I'm not going to go out here and say that the NFL has changed so much that Lou Anarumo's scheme or his knowledge of football is out the door as it currently stands in the modern NFL. But you don't have enough players on that defense. It's not the same group that we watch. And people talked about, the Chiefs don't want to see the Bengals in the playoffs. That's bullshit. It's not the same team.
No,
that was 5 years ago. Flush it down the toilet.
They can't.
Lou Anarumo will get picked up somewhere like Vic Fangio got picked up, and he'll have success. That's what I believe.
Can I just read off Ryan Grigson's top 75 picks?
Yeah.
Outside. So it's Andrew Luck was obviously his first one. Kobe Fleener, Dwayne Allen. He drafts back-to-back tight ends after he drafted Andrew Luck. Bjorn Warner, Jack Mewhort, Philip Dorsett, DeJon Smith, Ryan Kelly, TJ Green. Those were his top 7.
Jack Mewhort, Ohio State.
Ryan Kelly's a good player.
Ryan Kelly's a solid center.
Yeah.
He drafted
Bjorn
one
Warner,
solid
Florida
center
State, WDE.
Florida State.
A little WDE action.
Those picks were.
Bjorn Werner.
I got a soft spot for WDEs.
He did not do much in the league.
Those are white DNs for people that are listening.
Yeah. The Ryan Grubb firing to me was the most surprising. Obviously, Anarumo, Bradley, writing was on the wall. This was a first-year OC, and I lamented all year how he did not do enough to protect that offensive line. And he wanted 5 out. He acted like they were back at Washington, and the offensive line he had at Washington, college Washington, was awesome.
Monsters.
And one of the best in college football, and they could do that. Seahawks was one of the worst in the NFL, and they couldn't do that, and got not only Geno Smith killed, but then obviously we saw when Sam Howell's back there, it was just like no chance. So I'm not sure.
It was a weird hire based on Mike McDonald and what you think he wants to be, because he's a defensive guy.
He wants to run the ball. Coach, yeah.
And they hadn't aired out.
Right. And it was a weird hire. That goes back to somehow, some way, they must have promised each other something down the road. You know what I mean? That's a big problem in this business, by the way, is you promise your buddies and your pals that when we get a job, you're going to be on my list. You're going to get, I'm going to hire you.
You got an office in my new building when it happens.
Somebody had told me, and I haven't actually ever looked this up, but I should, that when Bill Cowher hired his staff in Pittsburgh, he didn't hire one guy that he was buddies or
really.
So, because
I'll ask him that this Sunday.
Yeah, ask him.
I will.
Because when guys go into meetings, and I've talked to many an owner about it, they want to see your depth chart of coaches 7, 8 deep. If you don't get him, I'm going to him. If you don't get him, you go to him.
It's like a draft board.
And I've told many coaches, I said, you need to do that. Guys on the way up, I said, have your chart. Oh, so when you go in, you fancy it up and throw it out. The owner will go, oh my God, this guy's so prepared. And make sure it's not just guys that are your buddies.
Yeah.
Because you want good coaches, whether you know them or not. Like somebody had told me, God, I'm trying to think, who was it? It came out and he had one of his buddies as his offensive coordinator. It didn't work. The owner looked at it and said, no, that's not going to work. Or the GM said it's not going to work. But it was one of his buddies. He pushed for him. So you hurt yourself in that scenario.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
I think that's an interesting conversation. I'll ask Bill about that this Sunday.
Take a break after that. Going to get to Pete's power rankings and our Goldilocks segment coming up next.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
All right, Pete's power rankings, which are technically not up on the website because Pete had a little trouble with email.
I sent it to
They're
him.
in the cloud.
No, I sent it. No, it should be up next.
Hey! Get down here!
You know why? It was so weird because it's usually I send them late on Monday night after the game. So I sent them during the day. And then I looked at it this morning. I go, where the hell are they? They didn't go through. So needless to say, I sent them again this morning.
So you'll have to wait
You'll
to get them. But you're getting a little preview here on Pushing the Pile. Number 1, Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, Buffalo Bills. Number 3, Detroit Lions. 4, Philadelphia Eagles. 5, Baltimore Ravens. 6, Minnesota Vikings. 7, Commanders. 8, Packers. 9, Rams. 10 Bucks. Let's just keep going out to all the playoff teams. 11 Chargers. 12 Broncos.
That's exactly what I did.
13 Steelers. 14 Texans. And that's it. Those are your playoff teams. Down, bottom 5 is Jags at 28, Browns at 29, Giants at 30, Pats at 31, and your Tennessee Titans with the number 1 overall pick. Well, they're 32nd in the NFL. So we're not going to do our usual who's too high, who's too low. We're just going to go back and compare it to week 1. And who was Pete too high on, who was Pete too low on, and who did Pete get just right. Week 1, the top 10, to refresh your memory, in case you don't have that active in your mind right now. Kansas City Chiefs were at 1. Green Bay Packers at number 2. Pete. 49ers at 3. Oof. 4 Bills. Sorry to do it.
Okay.
5 Bengals. 6 Ravens. 7 Lions. 8 Texans. Oh man, I was high on the Texans too. 9 Jets. 10 Cowboys.
Jets.
It's a tough game. Tough game to predict. Bottom 5, here's a fun one. 28 Broncos, 29 Giants, 30 Pats, 31 Raiders, 32 Panthers. Bryce Young saved them.
This league.
So that would mean the team that dropped the most, who Pete was too high on, the Jacksonville Jaguars were the team you were too high on, surprisingly, because you're usually like the doom and gloom Jags guy,
like the realistic Roger.
Jags fan. They went from number 12 to 28 in your power rankings. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence injury, a big part of that. Jets went from 9 to 26. Jeez. Browns went from 16 to 29. I feel like 16 was low on the Browns to begin with, though. I don't think a lot of people had them at 16, so there's really no shame in where you had them at the start of the season.
Good roster.
So the ones Jacksonville, I thought I thought the division would be tight. I didn't think the division would be as bad as it was. The injury factored in, and I thought they would be a wild card team. They wouldn't win a division. I thought the Texans would. One would win it with 10 wins. One would be a wild card with 9. It didn't work out that way. Disappointing there. The 49ers, I'm going to take a little asterisk next to that. Can't predict those injuries. I mean, where would they be if
everything that happened there?
So, and the Packers, look, I still think the Packers are a good team. The Watson-Alexander injuries bother me a little bit. But I still think look at the games they lost. I mean, they could have easily won every single one of them. We're sitting here raving about the Lions and the Vikings.
Caleb Williams could have swept them if not for a blocked field goal, but we're not talking about
Well, you can do that. You can do that. Yeah, you're
swept.
right.
Swept.
They also
the last game of the year,
Bears benched their starters in week 18.
Yeah. So I just think when you look at it from that standpoint, I'm still bullish on the Packers. I think the Packers will have an identity problem. What are you? What are you in offense?
Are you a power run team or are you a throw it all over the yard team?
Or do you allow him to throw it early, or do you allow him to play the run game? And then when he starts throwing it around, he looks good, but by that time you're behind. I think they have an identity problem.
I can't feel his hand right now.
If I would just one thing that I think was the biggest that people over exaggerated, it was their wide receiving core. I don't think it was that good this year. I think they were fine. I don't think they're a bad wide receiving core by any means, but there's no guy I trust to beat a top 15 corner in the NFL in man coverage. They don't have a single guy who I would be like, yeah, if we got to have it, I'm going to go to him.
Well, you could, if Watson's healthy, you could, if you lined up man to man, he can go by you. That
he's fat. He's a big play guy, but he is
we need every play
one trick pony, right?
Yeah,
he's nowhere near a complete wide receiver.
Correct.
He's like a souped up Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Correct.
I think there's two ways of looking at the Packers at the beginning of the year. Like, people have often said talent is a 4-letter word. You know what I'm saying? If you got talent, that means you haven't developed it into skill. And I think that with the youth in that room and the talent that they had, people put them on a pedestal, like you're saying. But guys like myself, there's a lot of promise in Green Bay because we know what Jordan Love's capable of when he gets hot. But we needed to see them take the next step. And I think that was one of my burning questions at the beginning of the year. Is this young receiving core going to rest on their laurels from the success they had last year, or were they going to take the next step? And they didn't take the next step. And now they finished with Christian Watson with an ACL and questions about their identity on offense. And it's kind of like we're back at square one here with this group.
Well, to your point about the wide receivers, if he's not there, who scares anybody down the field? Does anybody scare?
Speed. They don't have.
They got to scheme stuff up.
They better just block guys up and run the.
They got to scheme stuff.
Reed's your best deep threat. Then after that,
I love that guy.
Is slow. Dobbs is like not that scary as a vertical threat.
But they haven't had the other tight end all year. That's
Musgrave's back. And
right.
That's actually interesting because he's probably their fastest guy now. If you talk about top speed,
right?
He's probably their fastest.
That's the guy I thought was gonna have a breakout year.
By the way, we're talking about them like they're dead. They ain't dead.
No. Yeah. For sure.
Let's not bury them.
They're not dead, but they will get beat
dead.
in the first round.
Maybe you got a quarterback who's coming off concussion and he's a little rusty.
Don't let Tanner McKee out that moment. You know what I mean? Don't let him out there.
Oh God, look at you. Two games and you're on the bandwagon.
2 weeks ago, I was saying I think I interviewed him for a CPA position. But now I'm like, hey, Tanner McKee.
Oh man, he really does have big CPA vibes. All right, Jets though, I want to just touch on them for a second because they went from 9 to 26. And they didn't have, the Jags quarterback got hurt. The Browns quarterback got hurt. Jets didn't have a quarterback injury. They didn't have really that many big injuries that impact this roster. They just sucked from the start to finish. And to me, they're not 26 if Robert Saleh doesn't get fired.
Yes.
That season goes much, much differently. But they never were good. It just their offense with Nathaniel Hackett and what they had in that playbook was not ready to compete with the rest of the NFL. They just weren't.
Well, not only that, the supposedly improved offensive line wasn't an improved offensive line, and so that led to
pretty offensively. It doesn't help anybody, including the 40-year-old tackle and the.
But none of those guys played that. The center plays high. He got better as the season went on, but he plays high. The right tackle's 140.
He's my age. That's
honestly, the best they looked was when.
If you're 140, I'm 190. But
he's 140.
But and where's the tight end threat? There is none. They didn't. We probably over analyzed the offensive line, thinking it would be that much better, and they would be that. Breece Hall, what did he do?
Yeah. Well, but you shouldn't realistically need a great offensive line if the passing game was.
If it's schemed up properly. Yes. It is like watching Dancing with the Stars. Everything's in rhythm. Everything's on time. Everybody's beautiful. The lights are bright. Things are happening. You watch the Detroit Lions. Granted, they have a great offensive line. But I feel like even if they had some of their swing guys in there, Ben Johnson would be able to scheme things up to have things happening in rhythm, to make Jared Goff look comfortable, to protect the tackles. You watch a team like Chicago, who's got some pretty good offensive linemen. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the answers offensively from a creative standpoint, and they're in a bind week after week after week.
Well, that Rodgers offense, he wants 2 over here and 1 over here, and he wants them not moving, and he wants them lined up, and away they go. And it's just you can't play that way anymore.
One of my favorite things that Ben Johnson does, Matt LaFleur does, that Jets didn't do, was that even if you have they have good offensive lines. Those are probably top 5 O lines in the NFL. they still give their offensive lines help on passing downs. They are still chipping. They are still having 6 guys, 7 guys, max pros. They are still doing all they can to give even more time to your quarterback. That to me is the downfall of so many offenses around the NFL, is insisting on going 5 out when you don't have the guys to do it up front, and just not providing your O-line help. It's very easy.
You're
to
right.
do from a
5
schematic
out,
standpoint.
5 out, you need good offensive line. But another infuriating thing to me is these teams that do 2 out and max protect.
Yeah, oh, there's a difference. Like,
yeah, I mean, you got to be in between that.
Yes.
You know, nothing worse, and you know that as an offensive lineman. Eventually,
5-0.
Eventually, when you have max protect. Eventually,
you got to block for 12 seconds.
Eventually, somebody's coming.
You got to block for 12 seconds.
There's 7 guys back there, you know, against 2 receivers.
Unless you've got a Tyreek Hill who's taking the top off
Right.
the defense, or a Christian Watson or somebody
Right.
like that. But outside of that, you better hope you got the quarterback making the right decision or the check down every play.
And by the way, back to the Jets, Rodgers didn't play well for a month, at least 4 or 5 weeks of that season. He looked like he was still bothered by the leg. He's starting to play better. I mean, whether he comes back, who knows? But if he doesn't,
I'd
come
love
back,
to see him back.
What do they have?
I want to see
I
him
mean,
back.
too.
Yeah.
What do they have? What's your option?
Well, we talked about this yesterday. I wish you were on the conversations with us every week, so we didn't have to tell you about what we talked about. But Matt Ryan was on there, and him and I have had many conversations in the back hallway at CBS where it's like, do you think we just wrote off Aaron Rodgers too early and we gave the benefit of the doubt to all these skill players coming back? You need a year to get your explosion back, get your feet back under you. We judged Aaron Rodgers in the first half of the season. Shoot, I was on this show saying he was, dead, checked out, over the hill. But he doesn't look that way. I mean, he looks like he can play quarterback in the National Football League next year.
And you don't have other options. I mean, where they're drafting, what are their options going to be? And free agent pool, you want Russell Wilson over Aaron Rodgers? I don't.
I'd like to see him somewhere else.
Who? Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you, where?
San Francisco?
That's not going to
That
happen.
ain't happening.
It'd be fun.
But, okay.
It would be fun.
Aaron Rodgers, if you're Aaron Rodgers,
hell.
you don't want to be with the Raiders.
No.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if you need the Browns are like the only team where it could even like change them around.
If he thinks this year was depressing in New York, wait till they win 4 games in Cleveland.
And Tennessee's going to draft one. So
Tennessee would be fun.
Where are the options for
him? San Francisco.
Yeah,
get out of Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, would you do that for 1 year?
Kyle, if I'm Aaron Rodgers and
no, not Aaron Rodgers.
If I'm Aaron Rodgers and the complaint all year has been that our offense is too vanilla, yada yada yada, we're stuck in the mud, we're not in the modern day. You know who is? Kyle Shanahan.
It'd be interesting.
Aaron Rodgers has wanted to play in the Bay Area his entire life.
I get it, but what do you do with Purdy?
Trade him.
Somebody will pay.
Well, that means you're only basically getting a 1 year fix on your quarterback.
Great.
But they got
2.
Brock Purdy and they could draft one. I don't know. It's
because they did such a great job drafting.
It's far-fetched.
I am of the opinion that they're not going to back up the Brinks truck for Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they go 50+ million. I just
no,
don't think they do.
No, and I don't think Sam Darnold's getting that money. What if Sam Darnold goes one and done this week?
If you're Brock Purdy, though, are you saying like I'm in such
a line? Speaking of, let's get to that. Teams that rose the most. Vikings. They rose from 25 to 6.
I wasn't a believer in the quarterback situation, so fault on me.
No, not a lot of people were.
The worst thing that happened was the JJ McCarthy meniscus. It took away a quarterback controversy. It gave them an unquestioned leader in the locker room. It allowed JJ McCarthy to stand by and develop from a mental standpoint, get to witness the game firsthand.
So what happens now?
Sam Darnold, if he's smart, and I think he is smart, will take less than elite money to stay in the situation like Minnesota because he's got the best of both worlds.
What does he take? The Baker Mayfield plus inflation contract?
Yeah.
Probably.
Will the Vikings give him the Baker Mayfield plus incentive?
Depends on how he does in the playoffs.
Okay. If he gets the Baker Mayfield plus incentive contract, what do you trade JJ McCarthy then?
Yeah, to the Raiders.
Yeah. Like we've been saying.
The Vikings are in an interesting spot because they've built one, they traded a lot of draft picks away last year.
Right.
Two, they haven't drafted spectacularly well in the Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah era. They've built a lot of that team. I mean, just think about the impact players. It's all built through free agency. So to do that, to keep that kind of team, can't pay your quarterback a ton of money to keep a free agency laden roster. So, I mean, just from a pure cap sense, situation. And from talking to Matthew Collar, who Vikings insider, who was at all the training camps and just saw them both in training camp, he thought McCarthy was the better one in training camp. And now Darnold, obviously, like, uber talented. What he's done already is like bird in the hand versus, two in the bush sort of thing. But to see a guy that good that early on as a rookie, I think they end up riding with McCarthy at this point.
I don't love McCarthy. I never did.
I don't either.
So Darnold's for the streets
to me.
Darnold's for the streets.
But if you really want to shoot for the moon and go for a Super Bowl, because with Darnold, you'll probably make the playoffs the next few years if you do sign him to the 3 or whatever. But if you really want to go for a Super Bowl, big play, getting the super cheap rookie deal quarterback is your way to do that. And if Darnold goes elsewhere, you get a 3rd-round compensatory back. You need the picks.
See, I think what showed up the other day was the difference between the two offensive lines showed up in the Lions game. Darnold was getting pressured, even when he, and
yes, the interior of that O-line's
and
still bad.
What I think I heard you bitching about was the fact that the Minnesota Vikings changed their stripes in that game, and the Detroit Lions didn't.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings went for it in 4th down, goal to go situations.
Kick the field goal.
And the Lions continued to do that.
Right.
Be yourself, right? Nobody's newer than you. And I think Dan Campbell and the Lions understand that. And the Vikings, while we're all kind of sold on this year's Vikings, they're still trying to figure out who the hell they are.
They panicked.
When rubber meets the road.
They didn't in that game. They also weren't true to who they were as an offense early in that game. And I think they got away from who they were.
Take your points.
Yeah, damn right. And get the ball down the field early in that game.
Yeah.
They didn't try to.
All right, other teams that rose the most. Common theme here. Commanders go from 26-7. Broncos go from 28-12. And the Panthers go from 32-20. Young quarterback that plays better than everyone expected.
Yeah.
That's how you. That's why everyone says quarterback position is valuable.
Are we all in on Bryce Young now?
Yeah.
Yes.
You are?
Oh my gosh! Yes.
I got to see more of it, but he's significantly better since he came back.
He's playing like he sees the fastball. He's playing like he can see the fastball.
Well, the Falcons are terrible at defense.
Falcons terrible. They still have a good secondary, and he was. I'm not to say that #1 overall pick he's going to meet expectations of being, a stud, but he is undoubtedly a top 20 quarterback in the NFL. A top 20 quarterback in the NFL is like you're there. I at this point in time.
So
with how much?
So he's Baker? No.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
You think he can be as good as Baker?
I think he's
Baker
better than
adjacent
Kyler Murray right now. I think he's already shown more.
Yeah,
than
I got to
Kyler
see.
Murray.
The sample size is small. The teams haven't been. I mean, when he played the Eagles, he was okay against the Eagles on the road in that game. I mean,
he had a game-winning drive that Xavier Legette blew.
But it's just okay.
He had a game-winning drive against the Panthers as well. That Chuba Hubbard fumbled.
His own team,
or the Buccaneers.
Bucks.
There, okay, yeah. He was.
And they're not
all right.
It's week 18. I still haven't slapped him. We're doing good.
Teams that Pete nailed. Your Goldilocks teams. You had the Chiefs at 1 preseason, 1 now.
There you go.
Nailed that one. Not worried about the 38-0 loss though against the Broncos.
That's
big heading into the postseason.
Head scratcher.
Who were those guys on the field?
You and Mike are like, I didn't recognize any of these guys.
They called guys up in the practice squad and
They
played.
did. They let the equipment staff in there.
It's crazy.
You had the Ravens at 6 preseason, 5 now. Just about nailed that one. You had the who else did you nail? Were those the only 2? Oh no, that you were really spot on.
Buffalo's pretty close.
Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo was the last one there. Buffalo from 4-2.
And I was bullish on Buffalo more than most people.
I was not.
Yeah, most people thought the window was closed.
I was bearish.
I was bearish as well. Yeah, I was thinking they were going to be around 12 this year. I thought that was.
I love that.
I made a list of 8 Super Bowl contenders and left the Buffalo Bills off, and I got killed for it. And I was like, okay, we'll see. And now I'm an idiot.
And they are a contender.
Yep.
There you have it. All right, there's your Goldilocks segment. We're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to our debate segment.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Shut up.
You want to tell that joke on air? You want to share with the class, Kyle?
No.
right.
It was a D's joke, those D's jokes that all the kids do. It's one of those. So,
And he had to go down to Deerfield Beach to start the joke and come back up. And
there he goes. The commercial break wasn't that long, Pete.
Debate. We're not going to debate what we would pay $1.5 million for. We're going to debate football.
Oh, wow. Wow.
True or false? The number one
Stay away
seeds,
from me.
the number one seeds are going to make the Super Bowl. Both of them. True or false?
True.
False.
False.
That's Lions Chiefs.
Yes.
That's
That would
what
be
we're
Lions
going to see. We're going to New Orleans.
I think we see Lions Bills.
We're going to be there
I
for
think it's
pushing the pile.
scripted Super Bowl. The NFL gets the two.
The Lions sent a message that was so strong the other night against the Minnesota Vikings, and it's like that bell tower in Boca Raton. Every hour the church bell rings. The whole league heard the church bell from the Detroit Lions the other night, and they were like, "Oh my God, Ancelotti's back playing out there with a cyborg arm. Dan Campbell's nose is red, and he's spitting dip out the black bottom teeth he's got." The Detroit Lions look like themselves. They look like the team that we feared the whole year. They beat the brakes off that team. Granted, Sam Darnold and the Vikings kind of peed down their leg a little bit. The Lions just handled business. They didn't rest. They didn't rest in San Francisco. They kept it rolling. I think this team is hot, man, and I really could see them running the table. Ben Johnson is that much of an X factor. We talk about offensive creativity and scheme, and they've got it in droves. They've got the offensive line. Jared Goff is cool as a cucumber right now. Jahmyr Gibbs is an absolute problem. And I really like those guys on the back end for the Detroit Lions. They can create turnovers. I see them rolling. I don't even need to talk about the Chiefs.
Here's the thing, though. NFC is one of the strongest playoff cohorts I can remember in terms of top to bottom, 1 to 7. I mean, every team won 11 games.
They're a threat.
Right? It was like every team worries you.
It wouldn't surprise me to see a run by a team on the bottom of that NFC.
Right. That's
Like
the thing.
it wouldn't surprise me to
Commanders.
see the Bucs make a run. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Packers make a run. It wouldn't surprise me to see any of the wild card teams make a run.
Well, I'm already got a 2-game lead on you if those are your two teams that you're going to pick, Buccaneers and Packers.
You already put your picks in?
Well, maybe I sent Jack
You
my
didn't put your
bracket.
picks in yet. You
Okay.
wait 15 minutes before the show, which is why your record is so good.
Yeah,
And
we'll see.
on the flip side of things, I think in the AFC, the Chiefs, more likely than not, in my opinion, are going to be facing one of their division rivals in the very first game
They're going to probably play the Chargers.
for the third time.
Yeah.
That's not a great spot to be in my opinion. Trying to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. Well, I guess with the Broncos, not necessarily,
It's
but
not the same team, though,
it's, what do you mean?
for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I know it's not the same team, but like just anytime you have to face your division rival 3 times,
I get it.
difficult spot to be in trying to.
My pick before the season was the Packers and the Bills, so I just keep with it. I have to do a playoff bracket. You did one too.
Yeah.
I just keep with it. Look, do I really think the Packers can get on a hot run? Maybe, but not having Alexander worries me because they're a different defense when he's not on the
That
field.
one hurt.
But Eagles are beatable, and if Hurts, we don't know what he's like.
Yeah, that's wild.
Concussion.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't been cleared yet.
Yeah, that's actually
That's
underrated storyline. That
Right.
You better stop the run. You better stop that run.
And so
Tanner McKee.
And so if you're the Packers, they could win that game. If the Packers win that game, let's say the Packers, the Bucks win, and the Rams win, right?
Yeah.
Where do the Packers go? They would go to Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Packers win no matter what to go to Detroit. They're on the road.
Right. That's right, because they go to Detroit.
Yeah.
They can play. They can play with Detroit. They've showed that.
Yeah.
So I think the Packers can still get on a run. I think it's going to be a surprise. I think it's too easy to just pin the top 3 in the AFC and the top 2 in the NFC and say those 5 teams are what's going to win. I think we're going to see the whole league has been early in the season was crazy. Then the favorites started winning. Now I think we're going to see crazy a little bit.
It is wild that there's like an independent neurologist that kind of holds the Eagles' playoff chances in the balance, you know? And if he's
Unaffiliated
from like
neurotrauma
Milwaukee, all of a sudden it's like, oh shit,
Right.
this guy's got a lot on the
Right.
line. here.
This isn't the first time that we would have seen the starting Eagles quarterback go down in the playoff run and a backup comes in there and leads him to success.
The greatest
Hey-o.
accident in the history of the National Football League.
Chris was on that team when
It's
Carson
the
Wentz
greatest
went
accident.
down,
It's the greatest accident in
and
history.
BDN came in.
Dude, I still cannot. He was unbelievable.
Unconscious.
The NFC championship and the Super Bowl was some of the best quarterbacking I've ever seen.
But he also in the Falcons game he threw one in the stomach of Keanu Neal and he dropped it. Otherwise, the game is a different game. But and it's a great accident for Peterson too because he hasn't done anything since.
He wrote a book,
Yeah.
and then he went to Jacksonville.
So look, I think we're going to see a hot team somewhere get hot. It might be the Bucs. I wish the Bucs had no injuries on the back.
What happens
end.
if the Chiefs get hot?
Well, I think they can too.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to go in Arrowhead or Detroit.
I think
and
we're
win.
going to see the best version, the version of the Kansas City Chiefs that we saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas Day, where it was like, all right, let's roll the sleeves up a little bit.
I agree.
We're at the front door of the playoffs. Let's whoop somebody's ass before we take a couple weeks off. That's the Chiefs team, I think, that shows up. And we see an experience oftentimes. Experience is so big.
You know, they're getting their cornerback, and Watson's coming back.
Patrick's ankle will be good.
And then
O-line gets a couple weeks of rest.
Two speed receivers changes the dynamic of the offense. You had Kelsey can't run anymore. We know that, but he knows how to sit down.
He can find those soft spots.
He knows how to find. Hopkins can't run anymore, but he knows how to win 50-50 balls. But you need somebody that can scare. Now they have guys who can scare.
Yeah.
They have speed.
Last time, I'll end with this. Do you guys know the last time the Packers went to the link in the wild card round?
Was it
1998?
It wasn't the 4th and 26 play?
Nope.
No, that was it.
That was
at the vet. That was at the vet.
2010.
Wasn't that at the vet?
That was the Super Bowl year.
Super Bowl year.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know who was on that team? Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers was. Yeah, a little different team. A little different. And Charles Woodson. That was.
Imagine Aaron Rodgers and Ricky Pearsall.
When was the last time
I saw him and Jordy Nelson do it.
Oh, yeah.
He would love Ricky Pearsall.
What was the last what?
When was the last time they went to the link?
2010.
2010. That's the year the Packers won the Super Bowl. They were on the road first game against Mike Vick and the Eagles.
Then they went to what?
Then Atlanta. Matt Ryan, coworker.
Yeah.
I think Matt Nagy was
Chicago.
the quarterback coach.
Was he?
Or he was on that staff with Vic.
All right. Will Sam Darnold, next topic, play himself into a huge contract and rebound from week 18? It is wild that he has, I mean, I know he's made a ton of money and it's not like he's going to be financially hurting one way or the other, but I mean, legitimately probably a $30 million swing based off of what he does in the playoffs.
Shit your pants one time, you're a pants shitter.
Yeah, right. If he doesn't show up after week 18 and then just poops the bed against the Rams, his contract goes from $40+ million a year to maybe like $20 million.
Don't let Stafford come out there and sun you like that. Take all your bread.
What if he plays, like, throws for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns and they lose, he's going to get the contract.
That he will.
Yes.
But if he throws for 180 and 2 picks and they lose, he's got a problem.
He will. He's got a nice little $30 million probably riding on his performance. And honestly, like you said, once the pants shitter, always a pants shitter.
Yeah, dude.
I don't trust the guy's mental after what I saw in week 18.
No, I don't either.
That was not good. You could say all you want about the Lions' defensive performance, and obviously they played a big factor in it.
There were guys that were open.
Guys that were wide open.
Yep.
Not just guys.
He missed that he didn't
The
see
guy.
that he passed down.
The guy.
Right.
Justin Jefferson, Jordan
Right.
Addison.
Right. And here's the other thing is
You'll be hearing from my lawyer. I saw you touch me.
I think their offensive line averages as they come, the Vikings.
I agree.
You know,
Our guy Cam Robinson getting beat up out there.
He's always been a little overrated over there. And then the right tackle's a good player, but the inside guys, I mock Rick Spielman all the time. I said, you drafted a center who's my size. I mean, you know, well, that's what they wanted because Zimmer ran that scheme that, you know, they wanted the smallish center, but that guy gets beat.
Someone that's Stefanski. They drafted him with that Stefanski.
No, that
was
was with.
I think Stefanski likes big old hogs, dude.
What's his name?
Well, he likes small centers.
Kubiak.
Okay, with Kubiak, yeah.
I just think about that O-line. They're all just athletic big hogs.
But they drafted They drafted the Washington center who was tiny for Cleveland. I can't remember. Started for a while. All right, next topic.
I'm trying to think of the name. Pochich?
No. Oh gosh.
That's LSU, right?
Why am I blanking?
But they drafted. But I mean, in the right guard's not very good in Minnesota. The left guard, Blake Brendel, is just their guys, right? I mean,
Nick
guys.
Harris. That's who I was thinking of.
Nick Harris.
But that's why Kevin O'Connell and an offensive identity and scheme matters so much. Covers up so much.
Not having Darisaw is enormous for them.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's why I was surprised when they just wanted to cobble it together. But obviously, when you're on the precipice of the 1 seed, Kwesi was probably correct in that assessment. All right, finish this sentence. Blank should start a QB for the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Ravens. I know Pete's going.
Justin Fields.
I still think you got to start Russell. I don't think he's very good, but I think you
Give me the why.
Because big moment, you can't just throw Field. Now, would I put Fields in packages? Absolutely.
I can't stand packages. I say give me all or nothing. Either give me Russell Wilson with a well-dosed George Pickens.
What are we putting him on today?
You know,
But normally I would agree.
or because if you can't count on George Pickens, your moonball offense is non-existent.
Right.
And when you have a guy like Justin Fields, it opens up so much for your offense in terms of his athletic ability, his toughness, his competitiveness. I've seen it happen in Chicago before. The guy can take you on a bit of a run. Granted, they didn't win a ton of football games. That style of quarterback play. We talked about Bo Nix getting the green light in the playoffs. He's probably going to run a little bit more. Jaden Daniels to me becomes even more dangerous because we're here now. Take off the bubble wrap. We're going to go play some football. Justin Fields is that kind of player. And
so you would start Justin Fields.
I would start Justin Fields.
Would you? I wouldn't.
I just don't think it matters, honestly.
You're going to get beat. You're going to get beat in this game.
They're going to play them closer than you think.
You're going to get beat in this game. Play Justin Fields.
What's the big picture plans for the Steelers? What is your plan at quarterback?
To go 9-8 or 10-7 every year.
Every year.
And never win
and walk right into the Hall of Fame.
What was the last time they won a playoff game?
Well, I was telling you this yesterday? I was telling someone. They're like the mid 2000s, early 2000s Colts, where everyone's like, why is Peyton Manning's playoff record stink? Well, it's because those teams shouldn't have been playoff teams. That's the Steelers right now, is that they've cobbled together ever since, what was it, like 2016 or so. They had a great roster. They had a great O-line. They had Antonio Brown. They had Ben Roethlisberger. That team should have been in AFC championships winning. That was when it was like, okay, that team should have been. It was the real deal. Now it's like they back into the playoffs, shouldn't have been there. The fact that they lose every year is not an indictment of Mike Tomlin. It's an indictment of what they built from that roster perspective.
When we talk about the Steelers, what does the Steelers team do well?
Rush the pass.
With what?
Cam Hayward.
Yeah,
they have a number of guys.
But they're not great against the run.
I saw Preston Smith get home the other day.
They're not good on the offensive line.
True.
They don't run the ball very well.
They were good at moonballs when George Pickens was about it.
Minka Fitzpatrick's going to the Pro Bowl and had no earthly idea why he hadn't come close to playing. The corners are just okay.
Reputation award.
They're not very good. And so where they're at is interesting. And having said all that about the Steelers, I still think they're going to go in and compete with the Ravens this week.
They'll compete even more if they play with Justin Fields. Give it to Justin Fields.
What you said, third division game.
It's
tough.
Justin Fields is a horse. Go ride the horse, because the other horse you were riding, George Pickens, was AWOL.
By the way, I don't like. I'm with you. I don't like packages normally because if that tells you don't have a quarterback. But in this scenario, I think I would use it because you can't just throw him in a playoff game and say go ahead.
Well, then put Justin in and have Russell packages.
Have pass back.
Whatever you want.
Third downs. Russ gets third downs.
But don't spell the starting quarterback for somebody else.
So he can throw a moon ball up.
All right. Which dog this week has the best chance of pulling off the upset? The dogs this week. And I'm not going to go by seeding because obviously I think the 4-5s, both of the 5s are favored. So the dogs are the Rams, the Commanders, the Packers, the Broncos, the Steelers, and the Texans. Which dog is the best chance?
I think it's the Rams.
Interesting.
I think it's the Rams at home.
I could totally see that happening. But the way I see Jaden Daniels rolling into the playoffs for the first time.
He didn't look great week 18. But I know.
What we talked about was the thing that made Bo Nix so dangerous at the end. Not only was his efficiency, but his ability to be mobile, threaten the second and third levels of the defense to come up and protect run because he can run with the football. Jaden Daniels, I'm sure in his ear, the entire year, Cliff Kingsbury's been like, throw the ball, get down, get out of bounds. We're in the playoffs now. So, and nobody expects us to make a run. So do what you have to do as a superhuman quarterback to go get us the win. I think Jaden Daniels is going to put the team on his back in round one.
I think that game's going to be high scoring, by the way.
Yeah, it's going to get loose.
Very loose.
I love it. I mean, and I loved what Baker Mayfield and the Bucs did to get Mike Evans his record in a gotta-have-it situation. And I know there's a lot of coaches that hated it.
Was it Alante Taylor? Is that who it was? I think he let him have it.
I think they did too. They knew what was going on.
That's a little bit of Strahan
gamesmanship.
A little bit of Strahan Favre in that scenario.
You immediately know.
We're going to get Jerry Rice saying, "I need that. I need my record back."
That was.
If you see him, if you watch the play, he kind of. If you watch the play, he kind of does one of these.
Jerry's gonna show up with a copper fit outfit on, wanting to fight Mike Evans. Like, I need my record back.
Who's yours?
Commanders.
Yeah, you're both on the.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, they're just like, I think those are even. Shoot, I mean, the Commanders had a better record this year. Yeah, I know it's on the road, but Commanders to me is the one.
Think that you guys don't think the Rams can beat the Vikings?
I
think
do.
so.
I do.
I think there's a lot of live dogs.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's a lot.
Unless they got Darnold fresh out of
I'm
Huggies.
very excited. I mean, it's a
I give you a
good.
little hint for our pick show. I think the dogs are barking this week.
The
I
dogs
even
are
think-
barking.
I even think the Broncos keep it close against.
I
the
do
Bills.
too.
I don't know. 8.5's a lot for a
It's a
playoff
lot.
game.
Dogs are barking.
Bills have been losing for like 7 out of the last 8 quarters they've played.
Yeah, and their defense
Don't
did not walk in the playoffs.
Don't count the last game.
I'm counting the last 2 games, buddy.
Come on.
All right,
3 games.
Which
the Patriots, and then who did they beat in
Patriots.
17?
It was Patriots, then 2 sandwich games because they had the Patriots in a sandwich, and then they had who did they play in the middle there?
But all I'm saying is
Jets.
they weren't winning that much of the
It was the Jets.
Patriots ones.
which under the radar? Yeah, they blew out the Jets. Which under the radar player will have a game-changing performance in the wild card round?
Underperforming?
Under the radar player.
Oh, under the radar.
I think, I don't know if this is under the radar, but it's something that his position isn't really lauded for. I think Kyron Williams will have an epic day of pass blocking against the Minnesota Vikings.
He has to.
I think that
they're bringing him.
first and foremost, Kyron Williams, if you watch the show, I'm an O lineman. I bleeping love what you do protecting your quarterback. And you of all people know that with this matchup, you're going to get exotic looks. Sometimes you're going to have to block 1.5 guys. But when you get those opportunities to get one guy, you make them pay and you make them blink when they come after that old quarterback of yours. Can't wait to watch you have an awesome performance.
I'm going to go to a guy that I thought was going to have a monster season this year and didn't.
Dalton Kincaid.
Exactly.
I knew where that was going.
He pressed the Dalton button.
Yeah. Dalton Kincaid's going to have a big day. You got to figure Surtain's going to go one-on-one with whoever's in the 4x1. He's going to be over there with them. And I think you're going to have to get the ball to Dalton Kincaid in the middle of the field.
I'm going to go with Edgerrin Cooper of the Green Bay Packers.
He's a beast.
The past 4 weeks against the run, my gosh, that guy,
Violent.
different sort of athlete at the second level of defense. So if they're going to win that game, he has to track down Saquon in space. And honestly, I like
it. I like that one. The kid's been phenomenal the last month of the season.
All right, which game?
Not good enough against the Bears, but
Wrap with this. Which game has the highest TV ratings this weekend?
Well, it's usually it'll be a night game.
So the Monday night's Vikings Rams.
No, it'll be the Saturday night game.
Saturday night's Steelers Ravens.
That one.
Yep.
it could have the highest opening population, and then by the end of the first quarter, it could
Saturday night is you got to figure, you got to look for the night games.
Yeah.
People are snowed in or whatever because the weather's supposed to be horrible, and it has been horrible, and it's going to get worse.
It wasn't since it was 6 inches.
I think it's
when's this one?
That one's Sunday 1 p.m.
That one. If it was a night game, I'm with you. But
if we're talking about fan
Broncos,
bases, I mean Packers Eagles would have the most fan base, but it's Sunday 4:30. That could be that one. Still,
it could be that one. But so the Steelers Ravens.
Ravens is probably it.
Yeah.
Just because Vikings
Steelers
Rams
Ravens is on Amazon Prime, so you have to watch the game and that pregame show.
Vikings Rams doesn't have the mass fan bases appeal.
So it's up to you.
But
choose your own adventure.
Who, the Vikings Rams?
I'll go with Packers Eagles just to be a homer. But Steelers, I bet Steelers Ravens or Packers.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember there are so many Steeler fans because they won in the 70s, and
Yes,
so everybody's
Steelers
kid has been handed down and everything.
Who will have the most watched last 4 minutes of the game?
That's a good. I like Bucks Commanders.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Probably.
If James Daniels gets that ball.
Fireworks, yeah. The Commanders all season. It's every game. All right. That's our show for today. We'll be back tomorrow answering your guys' mailbag questions. We're actually going to do it this week. We're not going to pump fake you like last week. Leger Deuce will join the show. Until then, keep pushing.